Well, so Noah, what was the initial concept or structure as when you initially began writing the script?
The initial concept was that Jackie Kennedy has been portrayed in film and on television many times, and probably thousands of books have been written about her. But I had always felt like she had never gotten her proper due. That it had always been about her beauty, her elegance, her sense of style, all of which was true.
Mm-hmm.
But that, like so many women in history, she had always been sort of pushed to the periphery of the narrative. It had always been about her relationship to her husband, as opposed to putting her right in the center. And so, my sort of guiding principle from the beginning was, how do we tell her story?
Mm-hmm.
How do we take these familiar events and recast them completely by centering them around her experience. And so once I started doing that, it opened up a whole range of possibility as I wrote.
And so was the idea always to focus specifically just on those days, those 5 days of
Yeah, it was. It was.
assassination?
Yeah, and the reason was because sort of early in my research process, I discovered, to my own surprise, even though I had felt like I knew a lot about them, that Jackie Kennedy had coined this Camelot mythology a week after the assassination. I thought that the Kennedy administration had always been referred to as Camelot, and I was shocked when I realized that she had created that, and she had done it in this interview 1 week after her husband was killed. And so that kind of became the bookends that I wanted to work in between.
Now, Natalie, did this project come to you, or did you come to the project?
Well, Darren had sent me the script when he first I guess read it and decided he at first was going to direct it, and then he decided to produce it, and he sent it to me at that point. And I loved the script, but obviously it's delicate material and needs to be handled by the right director. And so for many years they had sort of tried finding the right person, but it was when Darren called and said, you have to watch Pablo's films. I just saw his work at the Berlin Film Festival, and I think he could be really interesting for this film. And that was when it sort of had a new life, I think, because it was clearly a person with great vision and who would take it in places that were unexpected.
And Pablo, mentioning the film of the tour of the White House is a perfect example of that, I think. I mean, when did you stumble across that, and when did you start to move it into its key place in the structure of the film?
What happens is that it's very simple. Just open YouTube and put Jackie Kennedy, and it'll just pop up. And I saw it like I don't know 50 times. I almost memorized it, and I also realized that in that White House tour, she was not only like showing the White House and doing it with such a fragility and beauty at the same time. But she was also talking about Lincoln's widow and Lincoln's life and how he was assassinated, and somehow it would foreshadow what would happen to her. So it was like some kind of strange map of pain of her own future. And it was also very beautiful because it opened the doors to us to show, for example, the Pablo Casals concert that actually happened there, and the party and things that would show some splendor that I thought it was nice to bring into the story. Because I don't know, it would create a beautiful reflection of what those days were, not just the dark ones, and also it could bring an interesting reflection on what's going on today. At least for me, even though I'm not American, it's unavoidable to think about it, and because you make the movie from nowadays, you don't travel in time, and yeah, it's just, I guess it's the splendor that created the proper contrast.
Well, so how is that striking a balance, Natalie, between getting the emotion of and the fragility that Pablo was talking about, along with the very technical act of getting every beat right and every moment exactly the way it was in the original film?
Well, it was great. We actually started with that part. We did the White House tour at the beginning of the film, and so I really, like Pablo, watched it I can't even count the times, just over and over and over, and was listening to it constantly, and was working with a great dialect coach who helped me with the dialect and the voice, and getting all of those specific rhythms, because Pablo was wanted to mix the original and what we filmed. We wanted to be pretty exact, so getting all of those like cadences and pauses and the strong, like sort of elongated words and all of the sort of things that she did. Exact was actually great sort of preparation for doing the rest of the scenes that were not, based on exact replicas of filmed existing film. So it really got me into the whole voice and everything. And then we got to play with all of the emotions, even in the White House door. I mean, Pablo would always be like, get more excited about the table. Like, she's so excited about the table. And it was true. You really saw her channeling all of her like passion into something very socially acceptable for a woman to be passionate about. At that time, to be like into decor was a completely acceptable and laudable feminine pursuit. And so she put like all of her desire into these objects, and it was a beautiful thing to get to add to the character, to see what she was like before all this horrible trauma happened to her.
And so where was the White House set created, and where were the interiors filmed?
Well, we shot in Paris for 23 days, and we built the White House in a studio in Paris, in Saint-Denis, which is like close to Paris. It's a replica, it's 1-to-1. And I think the job that Jean Rabat, the production designer, did is magnificent. It's very beautiful. And then we shot 10 days in Washington, D.C. We did the exteriors and the interview over there.
And so, Scott, what were some of the locations in Washington that were used?
Well, we shot the Road to Nowhere, was the Highway to Nowhere, which we shot for the Strip in Dallas, where they drove to the hospital. We shot a cemetery in Baltimore for Arlington Cemetery. We shot a house
Outside of the White House?
outside of the White House in front of Pennsylvania Avenue, and some of the streets around there for the procession. And then we shot in a house about an hour and a half outside of D.C. For Hyannis. As
the movie started to come together, Noah, did you feel that the emotional arc that I mean, not that you're personally putting Jackie through, but that by moving forward, by moving in time that you do, that was coming together in a way that made sense and showed the emotional trajectory that you had in mind?
Yeah, because I don't think that people's emotional trajectories are sort of linear or in one. I think all of us have fits and starts in terms of our emotional experiences, and we're also all very complicated people with different facets to our character, and particularly a public person like Jackie. And so if you're trying to capture her experience or make some sort of statement about who she was as a woman, I think it's actually a mistake to try to simplify that into sort of one clean line. And so the sort of mosaic approach, I thought, was always more authentic and more interesting.
Natalie, did you get a chance to do any research to find out more about the character that Greta plays and what their real life relationship was like?
Yes. First of all, Greta Gerwig is my favorite person. She's the greatest. She's an incredible actress, as you know, and she's like the person you just want to be next to. And Pablo actually cast her, not realizing that we had already worked together and were friends, which was kind of a miracle, because we didn't rehearse at all. So, and these characters have such a history that we had that because we are friends already. And it was very lucky, because it was, when she hugs me. It's my friend holding me, and it's very moving in a different way. And in terms of the character, it was really important. I think Noah did an incredible job choosing which people in Jackie's life we would experience her through, because you see her in these different relationships, and that's sort of how you get to know her. And Nancy was someone that she had been in kindergarten with, and then later in finishing school with. And there's like a thing about when they had in their yearbooks, it says like, where are you most likely to be found? And Nancy's was laughing with Jackie, and Jackie's was laughing with Tucky, which was her nickname for Nancy. And it's nice because I think at that moment of the assassination, it's really an identity crisis too for Jackie, because when she identifies herself as her husband's wife, and then her husband's gone, and she doesn't even know what's my name anymore. And then there's this person there who knew her before she was married, and gets to remind her who she is, and reminds her that she's not just her husband's wife. She's also the girl who snuck off and smoked cigarettes in the bathroom and was like, flirting with all the boys, and that she still has that in her.
Pablo, is it fair to say that this is the first film of yours that is really told from a female perspective with a main female character, and did that change the way that you made the film and approached it?
Yes, very much, I have to say. I remember it was very scary at the beginning, and I'll tell you a story.
Right, what did Natalie do to scare you?
I tell you, no, it was.
I'm always just mystified by this question, because I'm like, why is it harder to imagine like a woman's interior life than like a killer?
No, but
So it's like you can make a movie about like a murderer, and no one's like, how did you get into her head? Get into his head, and then they're like, how did you make a movie about a woman? Like,
it's not any woman.
so
It's
confusing.
Jackie Kennedy. Okay, so what I did is like I called my mother. Okay. Yes,
First step.
and I said, "There's an American director, and like who wants me to make this film," and she's like, "Who is that guy?" I said, "Darren Aronofsky." She made this movie with this cute dancer. Yes, right. Yes, ma'am, that's the person. And she's like, "You go and make that movie, son." And I'm like, "Why?" Because that's the story that we can all relate to. And then we start talking to, and discovered that it was, the story of this woman who sort of created an incredible reflection, even to a woman that it was my mother, was born in 1949 in Santiago, in Chile. And I was very moved by that. And I sort of understood that she was, that Jackie created something that gave strength to a lot of people in the world. And it was interesting, and it was very scary to try to go and
Inside a woman's head. Terrifying. It's a very brave man.
Please join me in thanking the filmmakers of Jackie.